Well, hello. All right, so here's the idea of this video today. I'm rocking my Yamaha RGZ 820R. It's got the parallel axis pickups in it, so it's a very groovy guitar. The argument here today is to kind of figure out a couple different things. A lot of people are in the tube amp side of the world, which they feel it's very kinetic and it's whatever it is. You know what I mean? Yes, it's visceral. Totally agree. Get a great sounding tube amp, plug it in, play it loud, blah blah blah. I'm kind of a guy sorry about that, but I'm a kind of a guy that when I record something, I don't get a chance to come back to it right away. So what ends up happening is that I don't remember the presets. I don't have an idea. Somebody kicks the mic out of the way. You know, you set it up, you try to record something, and it just goes to total crap in no time. So the idea here is to kind of show you guys, if you don't know, because you might only work in the real world, which is not the computers and all that kind of stuff, but I want to show you a couple of different things, pros and cons of getting into the box, and where technology is now today. So I'm using Cubase. You're not going to see too much in the background because I just don't want to keep adjusting the camera, but I'm using Cubase 8 right now, 0.5. There's a lot of new versions out since then, but my system's kind of old, so it does what it does. Now, what I'm going to show you is kind of the difference between why people get confused when they start getting into computer technology specifically. And this is one of the reasons. First off, you have to think of a computer like a car. It has an engine and it has a transmission, okay? And if you redline it, you can blow the engine. So basically, the processor is what's really going to be doing all of the things for the plugins. Now, you can do lots of other different things like get UAD cards, which, you know, I know is Greek to some people, but it's basically a separate processor. Think of it as like a graphics card for your computer that's separate, that just does that stuff, but they make it specifically for plugins. The only downside is they only work for those plugins. So the old TDM systems for Pro Tools used to do that, but those jokers can be like 15,000 bucks. They're crap now, nobody even wants them, they're a joke. But now computers are so powerful enough that they can run plugins for days. This one is a 10-year-old computer. It's an i7 quad core. You know, it's pretty hooked up for the day. For back then, it was pretty wild. But it's Windows 7, and the tech is gone. You know, it's just old, 10-year-old computer. It's done, but it still works. So here's the deal. A lot of people don't know about the Axe effects, okay? Axe effects they've probably heard of. They've heard of Kempers, they've heard of Helix, they've heard of Line 6 pods. I guarantee you've heard of that. And for the most part, a lot of those things have a lot of bad reputations for not sounding like a real amp. They sound crappy and compressed, and yes, we have gone from very old stuff to very, very amazing new stuff. Now, I've been dead set against running any kind of guitar through a plug-in. I've always either been an amp guy or at least a very high-quality amp sim, okay? One of the reasons for the amps and the sims is as soon as you play something, you get instant feedback. Now, let me explain to you what that means. When we open up this guitar preset, I'll show you what it's looking like. Now, this is kind of the Steinberg version of what Axe Effects and all these other different companies come up with as far as plugins. Now, I just put together some kind of sound. You know, just you can't hear it now because it's not activated, and this is where latency comes into. And this is the relationship between the engine and the transmission. Let me explain something. So latency basically is the time that it takes for you to strike a note, to go from the chord to the processor through your interface, whatever you're using, USB or direct or whatever it is. Then it has to go through the conversion process. It has to get into the software. It has to be processed by the memory and everything else that it's going through. And then if it's hitting in a plugin, it has to actually process all that data. You got to think about how insane that is, you know, to get it. It's lightning fast. So your computer processor has to be very, very powerful to do this. So in some cases, when you try to open up these things, they're using so much power that they can't do very much. So what they have is the ability to change the gears in the transmission. So you've got basically latency. Now latency is good for two things. It's good for when you need instant feedback, you put it in first gear, you get all the torque you want. But you know you can't go that fast with it. And you can't, you know, you're not going to win any races in first gear. So the whole thing is when you're doing multi-tracking, you have to use multiple instances of plugins and use drums and be using plugins, EQs, compressors all over the place. It's using a lot of processing power. So if you leave it in first gear, again, you've got a lot of torque, but you're going to run out of speed real fast. So speed kind of like equals multiple plugins, if you want to look at it that way. So the other side of it is, and I'm going to bring this up so it makes a lot of sense. Trust me, I'm going to give you an example why it makes sense. But latency also, you can change it to like say 6th gear, okay, where you don't get instant feedback, but you don't need it to get instant feedback because you're just listening to it. You're not actively doing anything, okay? So when you're programming something, like drums or a piano part or anything like that in a virtual instance, and I'll show you that in a second, if you don't have instant feedback, the click is going to be like this, and you're going to strike the key, but you won't hear the note right away for the drums, so you won't be able to follow and you won't be able to program the drums. So you won't feel it. So with the guitar, it's just like that for guitar players. If you play a whole bunch of notes and they start playing late, it's like when you're trying to have a conversation with somebody on the phone and then all of a sudden you hear your voice like a second layer delay. You cannot have that conversation. You have to hang up and call back and then do that. So that's exactly what latency would screw somebody up. So let's put this in an extreme example. I'm going to bring up my control panel in Cubase, which is basically this right here. Now this is called this is actually not Cubase's settings. This is actually the processing power of my interface. So I'm going to go from the buffer size to 496 or 4096, which is basically massive amounts of latency. But you'll absolutely see the difference. So now what I'm going to do is I got to arm the plug-in. Now watch when I strike something. Look quick again. So if I play, it almost sounds like a delay. And it's almost coming off like it sounds like a delay, but if I try to play, I can't even play like that because, as you can hear it, right when I'm trying to switch and I'm trying to hit on that beat, I cannot play to that. So if I was to... Now I can still play, but I would not be able to play to a track. So now let's talk about getting back. Okay, so that's a maximum amount of latency. So if we were trying to play like that live, we could not do it. So let's go ahead and change the latency down to like 512. Now 512 to a human ear is pretty acceptable. It's harder for like a drummer trying to play on hi-hats because they're playing like 30-second notes and those type of things, but when you're playing just kind of a... So I can play now. I can actually play to something. I can play rhythm. Now it has a slap back, like a really, really fast kind of slap backish type of thing, but it's not bad. It's definitely acceptable. Now, just so you guys know, that is just the internal Steinberger amp effects. So if I want to screw around with it, and I'll show you a kind of a cool thing, there is the argument of what you can do with this right here, because check this out. I'm going to go ahead, this is something that I came up with, try to add a little gain, go to a pre-effect with maybe a distortion or something like that. Let's see if I can do an overdrive. Alright, so I can kind of mess with it as we're going in the virtual world. It's not bad. Not the worst thing in the world, but let me go ahead and play to this track, see if it even comes out. So let's try that. Here's something cool. Once I've actually got it in the computer, I can play it back. This is the neat part. You can actually put the guitar down for a second, okay? And if you don't like everything about that, now you can turn yourself from being the person doing the guitar playing to being like the mix engineer that's kind of like the producer or whatever that has ideas in his head about, now what if we added just a little this or took that down a little bit. It's impossible after you recorded it with an amplifier because that's the way it is, unless you recorded it clean that you reamped. And this is kind of what you're doing, because when we bypass this plugin, listen to it. So that's just clean data. It doesn't sound good. Now if that's what your tone was to start off with, you just wouldn't even be able to play. So it's kind of an awful sound, but when you put the plug-in back on it... Okay, so that's that. Now there is a certain amount of technology. I can switch amplifiers, come over here, change it to this one. So there's a lot of tweaking that we can do in the mix. Nice with microphone placement, all sorts of different types of things. But this is limited technology, okay? This is kind of old school, like probably 6 years ago, that was the best that they could come up with. Now, this plugin right here is freaking absolutely blowing my mind. I was dead set against using any kind of plugins because of the latency thing, and I've already got an Axe Effects. So I downloaded 1 or 2 plugins from Neural, and they were really popular for like crazy, you know, over the top, like gent, you know, style, whatever. You know, the newer type of metal that's going on now. But this particular amplifier is really old. It's actually an 80s amp. And it's considered to be one of the best lead amps and metal amps on the planet. It's just really an incredible thing. And I never got a chance to really play through one. But they are supposed to be loud as hell, but they really did a great job remodeling this thing, and I feel like I'm actually playing through the real amp. So here's what you can also do if you have, say, this as a plug-in. Now the alternative is this is a $4,000 head, just a head, no cabinet, just a head, no cables, no nothing, just a head, 4,000 bucks. You can get this plug-in for basically, it's like 99 euros, which is like 130 US or something like that. 130 bucks, keep that in mind for what you're getting. Watch when I take this particular track, I'm just going to drop it onto the track with the actual plug-in from there on it. Listen to the difference. Put it back on the other one. Like, it's terrible. Like, that's why people said, oh God, but this. And remember, keep in mind, if I bypass the plugin, all it is this. It's just raw data. So if I don't like something on this particular saldana, I can go into the effects, more distortion, less distortion. So I can, in real time, I can screw around with all the settings. I can add pedals, I can change delay, I can add reverb, do all these different types of things after the fact, okay? Now there is a technique a lot of people will use. They'll record through a real amplifier, so the real amplifier will give them immediate feedback. And there's no latency involved, you just record through an amp and through a microphone. It doesn't even matter what the tone is. But what you also do is you have an AV box that sends the signal split, so you're sending it basically at the same time. One is getting recorded as a live guitar, okay, and the other one's getting recorded as just a simple clean guitar that you don't even listen to. You just use it as reamping. And then you can take those two things and you can put them side by side, and you can use the real amplifier and then use a plug-in, and then you can stereo spread them and put a little bit of maybe a 12 millisecond delay between the two and get them to widen up. You can get a massive sound out of doing that using a little bit of technology on the inside and also using some real amplifiers if you feel visceral on the outside. So you can do all that things. Now here's the next argument. Now this plug-in right here, like I said, it's nanners. It really has impressed the crap out of me. I have not expected that thing to sound that good. Now, your tone is definitely going to be affected by a couple of things. If you play it live and it sounds good live, you will play differently. You will play hugely different. When the tone hits your fingers, for example, tone is there, so you can squeeze it harder. Dig into the notes. It'll also make you sustain notes longer because you didn't even know that they were even going to sustain with the other plugin because it didn't have the gain. So your tone initially when you're playing, it's going to make you play differently. Just like if I take this and I put a Strat in my hand, I'm going to play completely different. I'm going to approach it differently. The ideas of blues will come into my mind. I just will, you know, not Saraceno, but blues, like just blues music, you know, I'll think of things that I've learned in that style and I'll play more like that. So it's actually, when you're recording and stuff like that, it's not bad to try to switch guitars because sometimes another guitar will just make you play and it'll inspire you differently and all that stuff. So let's compare this one, okay? Let me go ahead and do like a little run with this one from the beginning, and I'll then compare it to an Axe FX preset. So right now I'm actually going through the Axe FX, but it's just a clean, direct sound. There's no amp sims or no plugins, there's nothing, there's no compressor, nothing. It's just a clean tone straight through, just like if I was plugging into the interface, that's it. The reason I did it that way is because first off, it's the same source. The second off, if I go through any of these channel strips up here, I'm adding a lot of tube, you know, compression and color and all that kind of stuff, which could be good or could be bad. It could be its own thing. But anyways, so here's the plugin, okay? Again, I could play that all day. I could even take this right here, take this and put it up on this plugin, listen to it on that old. Like you, like me, if you heard that tone and you were a tone player and you played through amplifiers, that would be garbage. You would never ever, you would never endorse it. You would just be no freaking way. Now, that being said, let's go ahead and take this one and we're going to go ahead and mute this one. Now this one right here, this is just the, I'm going to open up the Axe FX and I'm going to go to the last one that I used, which was the, I think it's this one right here. Okay, so this one has zero problems. Zero problems with, it's as soon as I play it, it's on point. There is no problem with it. So that is the Axe FX straight in to Stein, you know, the Cubase. And so now I'm going to go and record the same thing, but now I'm going to play it with live. could go on for days. Here's the problem though. If I don't like that, I can't do anything. Now, this is the tone. So you hear delay, but there is no delay. It's actually recorded onto that track. So if I didn't like the delay or wasn't syncing up or something was goofy about it, I can't remix it. Okay? To where this particular plugin, okay, come back over here, you can hear it delaying because it's live in the plugin. Even though I'm not playing it anymore, I can actually change it, turn it off, and affect it like that. And then I can actually add in later reverb from a totally different source, and then I can mix it totally free. So there's a really cool time that we're in right now where technology really has caught up with the kind of the surreal. So the stuff that you are gonna play, you know, your guitar, you can get just massive from the Axe effects. And this is from here. And I still have all the toys that I can sit there and play with, all the speaker effects. Move microphones, change anything that I want, add stuff, add reverb, you know, pedals. More distortion, whatever. You know, just add more gain. I mean, that's the best sounding plugin I've ever heard in my entire life. I mean, by far. I'm buying this one. I mean, this plugin, no joke, inspired me to do this video and inspired me to actually write this melody today. I mean, when an amp or a guitar will do that, you know we'll spend thousands of dollars on this, but you wouldn't think to spend $100 on that because that's part of this, you know what I mean? It's all that. Anyways, so the idea is what I was trying to show you is that even with this plugin, I'm going to show you a ridiculous amount of latency that I cannot play to. I can't play it to drums, can't play it to anything. And here's an example. Here's a drum beat. So if I try to play, it's so bad that I can't play to it. So this is if you had a weak computer and you just could not have any of these things open, this is what your tragedy would be. I can't play it. I cannot play it with that latency. I can't play it. That's the problem with latency. So that's the huge difference between if you don't know how to actually run your system and actually adjust for latency, then you're going to be in trouble. But this is not a complicated thing, but it is something. Let's see if I can put it down to like 256. And it's probably going to make a lot of like goofy things happen because it's really stressing the computer out. But now I don't know if you guys can hear it, but anyways, what ends up happening is when your computer is tweaking out. There's a process monitor on here. You can see just in the back. I don't know if you can see it in the corner, but this is if I'm playing. It'll start smacking the processor so hard that it starts clicking. And I don't know if it's a permanent thing that's actually encoding it into the digital part when I'm recording it. I don't think so. But the bottom line is when it starts to click, it starts to pop, and there's all sorts of nasty stuff that can get in your mix, and that's why it's a mess. Plus, here's the other thing. This is a plugin. So you could theoretically take your laptop, put this on there if it's powerful enough, and then take it to a gig run your interface out to the PA, and then you could have this $4,000 head, you know, running on a Dell laptop or something like that. Now, if you trust your computer at a gig, take the chance. But this right here, the AxeFX is really the alternative, because you can take that, save your presets, tweak everything, have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of presets for every guitar and every single pickup combination and solo that you ever invented. And you can keep it on that one thing. It's lightweight. You plug it in, you take it anywhere you need it, and then you're done. And you can use it for recording, and it's always going to be reliable, zero latency. There's pros, there's cons, there's all sorts of different types of things. It is hardware. Hardware is not upgradable for the most part. Yes, it can have some firmware updates, but this thing is now, it's an AxeFX 2 XL Plus, which was more expensive than the AxeFX 3 when I bought it. And now it's not, you can't get the new cabinets and the new whatever, so it's basically old tech. It will be a Line 6 pod one day. But I mean, come on. For being a Line 6 pod, I think that this is a pretty sick amount of tones that you can get. Anyways, man, I'm just wanking around here. Hopefully this answered a couple of questions about like the difference between why you'd want to use plugin, how far we've come with plugins, how good they really sound nowadays. Are they practical and for recording? Do they inspire you? Now the answer for me is yes. I am absolutely blown away by that Soldano plugin. I mean, I've always liked the amplifier, but I ain't paying no $40,000. I'm just a hit. No, I don't even record. I've got amplifiers wall to wall in there. I've got probably $20,000 worth of amplifiers in there. And I never turn them on. Never, 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 never. I have not turned them on in years. I got an amp sitting right here. It's cool, but I'm never going to use it, and it's too damn loud for me to even get into. So I'm just, you know, I don't want to go through all that stuff. So I live in the box. This plugin right here, luckily I have a really, really badass computer that I just built. It's in the other room, but it is not accessible for me to start putting all this stuff on there just yet. But now that I know that it can actually handle all this kind of stuff, yes, I will definitely start investing into getting into this. Just so you know, you can go to neuraldsp.com and you can download a 14-day free trial of this, and it'll run. You can record with it, you can print it, you can do whatever you want. It's 14 days free, and even if you bought it, it's only $100 basically. So definitely go check them out. They've got a whole bunch of other plugins that you can do, but this one right here is bar none the best sounding plugin I've ever heard in my life. That being said, the AxeFX is still going to be probably my number one go-to. I may not buy this plugin for a long time until I can get the other computer set up, because there's just, I don't play enough, unfortunately, nowadays. I get to maybe play once or twice a month now. So, I hope you learned a little bit and you stayed with me this long, because it is pretty long-winded. I get long-winded, but think of this as a free guitar lesson. That's what I used to do. So, enjoy. And if you have any questions, comment, like, subscribe. Appreciate it.